Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma here about Märchen Crown, chapter number 30. This chapter is titled Curse of the Werewolf, because of course, Volka is cursed by the werewolf. You know, I thought I was going to have something else to say there, but apparently I just didn't. So I guess let's just talk about what happened last time in Märchen Crown, is where we learned, Volka is cursed by a I did it again, the chapter title, does a good job, and where do we begin this chapter? Wow, Volka is cursed by a werewolf. That's insane and crazy. In all reality, I'm not a big fan of this Little Red Riding Hood arc right now, and it's fine. It gets the point across. It's decently interesting. I don't like sort of how Michael and Volka have this very weird relationship when it's like, dude, Michael, you've already got Rapunzel. Like, what are we doing here? And also, having people and selling them off as goods, especially women, isn't good for anybody. And, it's just one of those things that happens in stories sometimes where it's like, yeah, don't love it, but it's a necessary thing we gotta tell about or else people are going to try to do shitty things, And that's sort of where we are in Märchen Crown right now. And I'll give you one guess what happened last time in Märchen Crown. Oh, wow, we learned that Volka has the curse of the werewolf. Dun 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 dun. As we see that Michael was confronting her last chapter, being like, hey, Volka, like, who really are you? What is all of this various stuff? And Volka very quickly was just like, hey, why? I only did what I was told, and pretty much lunged at Michael, turning into, this werewolf-looking weird, it's very body horror creature-esque is what we get in this chapter, and you know what? It's very weird, you know what I'm saying? But we start off this chapter of Märchen Crown with Volka sort of doing this various thing again, is lunging towards Michael. Her body's turning into a wolf, but very interestingly, last time we saw the wolf's muzzle and face sort of forming out of her face, but now it's sort of forming in her midsection of her body, right under her breast. It's just a very weird look thing. She's just why? I only did as I was told. Why would she say something so cruel? And she's just chasing after Michael here in the moment, tell me why, Mr. Hunter. And of course, Michael, who's just sitting on the bed in this room, is she's a werewolf, another curse. As the wolf goes to bite Michael, Michael pulls a sword out of his bag and sort of puts it in the wolf's mouth as the wolf sort of chomps down on it, trying to get towards him, but Michael sort of forces it back a little bit. The wolf then uses its claw to grab part of the blade and slip it out in between his mouth and lunge at Michael a little bit more, biting his arm and his midsection as the thorns of the curse sort of sprout out around Michael's body and cloak him in a little bit of a defense. The thorns then come out, form around his hand, and form into a bow and arrow, with the sword as the arrow here in the moment. It's honestly a little bit of a badass panel once you realize, oh wait, so he's just making the bow out of thorns and the arrow's a sword? You know what, Michael, that is a little badass. But you see that Michael, he's aiming it right at the wolf here, and the wolf starts to growl a little bit more. But then, of course, Michael sees Volka's face behind all of it. And he's like, hey, that's enough. I'm not actually a hunter. There's really no point in us hurting each other. Do you hear me, Volka? And as this sort of happens, the curse inside of Volka's body almost stagnates a little bit and falls to the ground, and all of the furry features and all of that starts to recede back on Volka's body. And it sort of transforms off, sort of forming that very anime manga transformation is dispelled. Wow, smoke is coming off the body. As then we're oh yeah, Volka is a naked, very young girl in the room with Michael with just a little red Riding Hood cloak to cover her. Yay, I love reading manga as an adult, And Volka sort of looks up at Michael, and she's like, oh no, you beast, and covers herself up, and Michael's like, what do you mean? Pretty much, right? As we see that Michael and Volka go on top of the roof of a building around here, or I actually think it's more on a bridge just in the area, overlooking just a little water feature. And Michael is very much explaining the entire sort of idea of this arc to Volka, and she's like, oh, so you're telling me I'm the wolf? And Michael's like, yeah, it really looks like you don't remember then. And she's like, well, when you asked me what I was, I thought about it. It was the same as when I went to my grandmother's house. It'd just been to see her, yet I couldn't remember a thing. And next thing I knew, I was back at the village. So the wolf that killed grandmother was actually me, wasn't it? And Michael looks over at Volka and also sort of reminisces on everything else that's happened so far. As Michael just thinks, no, I better not tell her about that other guy I found in the woods, mauled by the wolf. As Volka then looks over and she's like, hey, Michael, are you and I the same? Are we both cursed? And Michael's like, well, I actually can't say for sure. I still don't even know my full situation. And Volka's like, oh, I see then. But Michael's like, no. But there is one thing I can say. We have to keep a strong will, Volka. Someone cursed just like me told me that once. And by maintaining your will, even if the curse threatens to consume you, you'll still be human. So together, we can share the pain. That way, we're not alone. And Volka blushes and just really looks at Michael here in the moment, as Michael's sort of like, what are you going on about, pretty much, and like looking at her like, you're not saying a word. And sort of goes and dips down into Volka's face, and she's like, oh my gosh, there's a boy in my face, what do I do here in the moment? And she sort of like crouches down and like pulls her. It's honestly a little bit of a cute moment where she just goes and like grabs her hood and like pulls it down over her head like, oh, nothing at all, nothing at all. And she's sort of then like, well, I need to get home and go to bed. Like, I'm really sorry about all of that earlier. Like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Hunter. No. Michael. And she goes and runs off. And Michael is standing here and like, well, I guess it's not just her, but all of those girls from earlier too. One day they'll all. As all of a sudden, a voice enters the area on this bridge where Michael is standing. Well, goodness, better not to be a late night thirst. You haven't sullied our Volka, have you now, young huntsman? And Michael looks over like, oh, of course not. And we see like this old geezer standing here. Oh, very well then. Even if that old woman dies, she can be replaced. But the same can't be said for the girl. She's a valuable young lady after all. And Michael's like, do you mean she's valuable as property? And the old man looks up, almost peering into Michael's soul. Once young ladies are ripe of age, we feed them sheep's milk and meat to the heart's content. When the hair is lustrous and the body's plump, oh, they will fetch a high price. Any damage would be a huge loss to business, you know. That's the role women have carried out in this village since long ago. Well, every territory has places like this, after all. I can understand how you feel, but please, keep out of it. And Michael is very silent, of course, not really wanting to go along with all of this, as the old man's like, oh, well then, sorry to ask you, but leave this village tonight. You needn't make the wolf your business. Someone like you shouldn't be here. If our village should be ravaged and destroyed, then that is just our punishment. And this old guy just walks away, and Michael stands here sort of looking back in the direction of the old guy, and next thing we know, the sun is rising in the morning, and there's a carriage with many horses and just entering the village, and we just get a little bit of narration. That next morning, in the morning mist, there came a wagon. The Earl's envoy and his men had come to whisk away Little Red. And that's where we end this chapter of Märchen Crown, as we see a few guys are standing around Little Red Riding Hood, Volka here in the moment. And yeah, that's where we end this chapter of Märchen Crown. So yeah, this is a very concerning chapter of Märchen Crown content-wise. Really, this whole chapter is just should be flagged for anybody who reads it, you know? Like the whole idea of Volka, oh, she's a wolf, and I mean Michael's whole sword bow thing is a little interesting, but eventually just getting into the whole idea of this old guy being like, hey, you haven't ruined our Volka, have you? Well, if you have, oh, well, god damn it, you terrible person, pretty much. And, well, here's the thing, leave this village. Everybody needs somewhere like this to keep the men happy, because we all know the men are the most important thing around. And, of course, at the end of the day, the whole idea of he's like, oh, and don't worry about the wolf. We should deal with that on our own. If it ravages our village, we get what we deserve. So, this guy knows he's doing the wrong thing, but he's still doing it because he doesn't know any other way to live. I don't know, man. It's really one of these things to where I honestly don't know how to put it into words, you know? This chapter, I get what it's trying to get across. I think I said this in the very last chapter number 29 video I made. But, I get the whole idea of the chapter. It doesn't mean I like it, you know? And I think that's it's something we all need to experience, is being very uncomfortable reading and experiencing media. Because it lets us grow as human beings. And this is one of those times and experiences in media where I feel like I'm just feeling uncomfortable because it's what Aka Asakaso felt like writing this week. Not something that will help me grow as a person, but something that's just making me uncomfortable for the hell of it. And honestly, I think that's the best way I can describe this chapter of Märchen Crown, is just uncomfortable for the hell of it. Of course, next chapter I have pre-read a little bit, and I know that next chapter we have a decently nice moment where Little Red, or of course Volka, stands up for herself, and hey, it's a good moment, getting this whole idea of this really terrible arc, this terrible town, and Volka standing up to it. Yeah, great. It's a good thing at the end of the day. But this chapter, yeah, just a few issues with it, and no reason why. This Little Red Riding Hood arc, yeah, it ain't it, Chief. I really like this series more when it was just random stuff of, oh my gosh, they're cutting off the feet, what is this going on? And then never explaining it. That's my favorite part of Märchen Crown. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I've covered every single chapter of Märchen Crown to be released thus far. All of the previous 29 videos on each of the chapters will be in both the description box of this video along with the end card of this video as well. And if you did enjoy this video, maybe you'd consider subscribing to the channel, liking, leaving me a comment, any of those various things. They all help out the channel at the end of the day. And yeah, with all that being said, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma, signing out.